I'm Cindy Bokser, and you are listening to the Fiber Artist Podcast, where we chat with artists, makers, and creatives who work with fiber, get to know their stories, how they came upon their fiber practice, and more about the person behind the work. Well, I am finally back after a much longer break than I intended. Really just milked the end of summer and spent some quality time with my boys. I am just really excited to share this next guest with you. What an inspiring woman, creator of some of the plushiest and most fantastical handspun yarns on the market, the brains and beauty behind the wonderful yarn shop Knit Collage, Amy Small. Amy is just the best. I hope you guys love this conversation as much as I did. And real quick, before we get into it, if you're new to the Fiber Artist Podcast, I also have a shop called Niroma Studio, and you can get 15% off your first purchase of any of the rope, yarn, fiber, looms, and accessories in my shop with the code The Fiber Artist Podcast. All one word and spelled the American way with an ER in fiber. Head to niromastudio.com and have some fun. Again, the code is the Fiber Artist Podcast. And without further ado, here is Amy Small of Knit Collage. Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to get a chance to speak with you.
I am so happy to be here, Cindy. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's just kind of get right into it. I guess, if you can just give me a little bit of background of where you are right now and what your current sort of situation is.
Awesome. So I see your beautiful macrame and I'm jealous because in my normal office, I have like cool stuff in the background. Apologies. I'm at my parents' house in Rhode Island for a couple of weeks for the summer, near the beach. And I've got like all my yarn and projects here.
Oh, very beautiful.
But in the background, it's not, it's just working out of a bedroom.
No, I know. We're like deep in the summer break right now. Yeah. So it's like, I'm just happy.
It's kind of survival mode. Do you feel like?
Yeah, it's survival mode. And I'm kind of like waiting for school to start again. I mean, I love the summer and I love being able to sleep in and stuff, but I really am looking forward to like the kids being in a routine again.
Yes. I totally relate. At the same time, I feel like, oh, I love summer, also enjoy it. But it's just that it's hard with work.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so tell me. So I kind of already know a little bit, but tell the people. So I know you have kids and...
Yeah, so I have two kids. They're 3 and 5, two boys, and I'm based outside of Boston. I used to live right in the city, but a year ago we moved to the suburbs, which has been really nice because instead of like this, my desk being right next to my bed, I actually have an office space.
That is the best.
Which has truly been life-changing, that one small thing. And I own and run a small business called Knit Collage, and at Knit Collage we make really unique hand-spun yarns. Some of them aren't hand-spun. Some of them are actually fabrics that are screen printed that we make into yarns, but they all have some handmade touch to them. So that's sort of what I do. And then I work with a lot of different pattern designers who contribute and write knitting patterns with their yarns and crochet patterns. I do some patterns. And that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes it sound very small. It's really this amazing yarn company that you've built. When did you get it started? And well, actually, let's go way back. I have to assume that you have like some knitting background. And how did this all kind of come about?
Yeah, so I bet I was like you as a kid. I was really crafty. Like I was bedazzling everything, seed beads, friendship bracelets, and when I was in high school, I made those hippie jeans with the triangles.
Yes,
I was like doing all of that,
like the embellished bell bottoms.
Oh yeah, and it was when Lauryn Hill, had those like feather Gucci jeans, and like I was definitely trying to make my own version of those. So I kind of always had in my mind, I'd like to try something in fashion, and I was crafty kid, ended up going to school for fashion. I went to Cornell in Ithaca, which has a super small fashion design department. And that was perfect for me because I was terrified I was going to change my mind. I kept thinking, what if I don't know what I wanted to do, but I was just second guessing myself. And I think art school made me really nervous that I would kind of have to stick to that decision.
Yeah.
for a long time. So it ended up being a good fit. And
so did you go all the way through Cornell, like with a fashion design degree and everything?
yes,
That's
I did.
amazing.
I ended up not changing. It's a cool program there because it's really small. I think there were only 30 people in my major.
Wow.
Um, and it's the School of Human Ecology, which is, it used to be home economics. And so it's a lot of throwback women's, kind of
Right.
women's type major. So there's human development, which was, I think, somehow related to childcare. There's interior design, which is now like design and environmental analysis. There's fashion design. There's nutrition, which I think was more cooking. So it was a cool, weird, school
That's
to be in. But
fascinating. Yeah, no, I didn't know that they had this program, and it's really funny because in one way it sounds like this like old school way of doing everything and thinking about things, but I feel like now that we have so many like digital things in our hands, we all kind of want to go back to these
yeah,
things, like that
and
really
they've done,
back to like our human sort of instincts
yeah,
to be
yes.
creating and nurturing and
Yes,
yeah.
totally. And I think they've done a great job of bringing it into making it relevant for modern
Right.
times. And of course, there's tons of men that are in those majors as well. So it's open to everyone. But it was a really, like, you wouldn't think potentially that it would be a really creative school, but it was. I lived in an art program house where it was just all artists and it was a castle and everyone had different color hair and like there was a photography studio and a theater. And it was a good fit and a good place for me to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then I landed an internship at Free People, which is part of Urban Outfitters in anthropology, um, my junior year of college, and they're based in Philadelphia, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
And while I was there, there was this one lady who I just became obsessed with. She was a sweater designer and she never was in the office. She was always in Asia. And she finally came back to the office and I was like, oh my God, my brain has exploded. You are the coolest person. I'm going to do anything I can do to like make your life easier. And at Cornell, I really only learned cut and sew fabrics.
Okay.
So design, sewing, that kind of thing, nothing related to sweaters or knitting machines or anything like that. So I finished that internship and I took a knitting class at the local yarn store in Ithaca, and that's how I learned to knit. So,
Nice.
like, I do think college was important, but sometimes I have moments of being like, I don't know
Well,
exactly. Intangibles.
right. Well, it brought you to Ithaca and to that particular yarn shop where you learned
Yeah.
something totally invaluable to what you're doing now. So.
Yes, and I'm sure there's great time management and multitasking that I was learning and I don't know other things. But
Oh, I
I
mean, anyway, college is for, like making friends.
yes, yes, I
Making
had
lifelong
I
friends.
had a lot of friends. Yeah, it was really good. But I learned to knit and they offered me a job my junior year and I just jumped at it because
At Free People or at Free
yeah,
People.
yeah,
Oh,
to work for
amazing.
Mary, this sweater designer. And I just jumped at it because aesthetically, I think I had grown up going to the original Urban Outfitters in Philadelphia as like a 13-year-old. And that was when it was all Levi's and it was just so cool and different.
It was awesome.
Oh, do you remember it?
Heck yeah, like in the late 90s?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool that you remember that.
Oh, my God,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was really cool then. And she was a huge part of that as well. So when I started, we were designing sweaters for Urban Outfitters and Free People. And she was an integral part of building Urban Outfitters to what it is today. But now she does FP1. So if you go on the Free People website and you look up FP1, that's her own line. And then she also designs all the interiors of Free People stores and the displays.
Oh,
So if you want to have your
cool.
mind blown, go check out her. It's all hand carved furniture. It's truly amazing.
That's so
So
awesome.
yeah, she's played a huge part in where I am and today. And she's a really private person. So I try to get her on the podcast, but I just am like, I'm not going to push it.
Oh, let's get her on.
Oh, I know she's so incredible. So I started working for her and I really became obsessed with sweaters. I'd always liked sweaters, but just the idea that you could make your own fabric and then design your own thing. You weren't locked into a fabric. You could stripe the yarns in different colors. There's different stitches. Like I just got totally immersed and obsessed with it and loved working there. So I worked there for 5.5 years, and about halfway through, I moved to Hong Kong with them. So I had been traveling a lot in Asia, all throughout Asia, where we made the sweaters, and ended up convincing them I needed to move to Hong Kong. I think part of it was that I grew up in Philly, and I just was like, I need some adventure. Going to school for fashion was all women. Free People was all women. I was like, I kind of just need to like do something crazy. And they said yes and let me go.
Wow.
So it was real. I mean, it was incredible. And I met my husband there. So that was also really cool.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. Well, and also wait, so were you junior or senior at this point? Or you worked there while you were
no, sorry. So I went back, I interned my junior year, and then I went back my senior year and they offered me a job that spring. So I started in summer. My first day of work was actually in Hong Kong. And then I went to India. And this was before the recession. So I flew business class, which I will never do ever again. But I was like, where am I? What's going on here?
And business class to Asia. Not that I've taken it, but is like it's like 100 times better than business. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like what they show you on Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes. I don't think it was that nice. I love that movie though. That was one of my favorite movies. It wasn't that nice because I think that's first class.
Oh, okay.
But it was really nice. And business class tickets are very expensive.
Yes.
So I think that will be happening. It just where I would ever want to prioritize my finances that collapse. But yeah, I mean, it was just a really amazing, formative time in my life. I threw myself into work. I didn't have a life outside of work. I gave it my all. I was just absorbing everything, and it was so much fun. And I think I kind of have the personality that I tend to throw myself into things. And then when I moved to Hong Kong, what was so cool is that I started to have a life outside of work, and I made an amazing group of friends that were they were mostly English speakers, which is lame, I know. But
no, I mean, I feel like that's what you would gravitate toward when you're there.
It's easy because it was a British colony. Many people, even the Hong Kong people, all speak English pretty well. So it was a really easy place to get along. And made friends from all over the world. And it was such a fun place because it was such an interesting type of person that was attracted to go there. Like they love to travel, there were a lot of like extreme athletes. I don't know what you call that, but the type of people that do like ultra marathons.
Yeah. Things like well, I mean, you have to be a bit of a risk taker in general. And you were really young when I think about it. You were right out of college?
Yeah, I was 25 when I moved there.
Okay. I mean, it's so brave. I don't know. Like, it's so brave to do that, I feel like, when you're that age.
I would encourage any young person to do it. Like, as much as I wouldn't want my kids to be away from me,
right?
It was really formative. And it was the first time in my life I formed friendships with guys, really good best friend friendships. And I think that was really, on a personal level, important to me because I started to just act more like myself around guys who I'd always felt weird and awkward around. Not to be TMI, but I went to an all-girls school for my whole life too. So I'm sure that added
right.
benefits in other ways, but I think socially, I always felt a little awkward. I still probably am. Who am I kidding? But
I think we kind of all are a little bit. Well, this is a whole other podcast, but like,
I know, I'm getting really personal.
No, I love it. I like want to talk about all of it. I'm just like, is she going to be wanting to talk about how funny it is to be around other genders? Like, because in a way you're kind of like, I don't know. They all sort of want to get in your pants, but then you have to figure out who's actually just a friend. And then, the lines get blurry.
Yes. It was a really fun place for that. And I don't know, it was the kind of place where you'd meet someone and you'd say, oh, hey, I'm Amy. I'm from Philly. Do you want to go on a hike tomorrow? Like you'd meet someone at a bar, at a coffee shop, and that was totally normal.
That's awesome.
And then I guess college is a little like that. But every other place I've lived since then been far different. And it was just a really special time. And Hong Kong's quite small. So despite being very populated, it's actually like kind of like New York, small.
Right.
So you run into people and it was really fun. And I started training for my first marathon. And I loved having this other side of my life that was outside of work. And I think in another life, I would be either yogi or like, I could spend my days doing physical things. I just went for a run, which is why my hair's all
awesome.
So, and I think around this time I started to just burn out on fast fashion and designing for fast fashion, because you have to design so many things. Like, I think we were designing for 16 deliveries a year.
Wow.
So a lot of sweaters to come up with. And it just, I think, wore me out a little bit. And so I decided to quit, but I decided to stay in Hong Kong, which I just was loving being in Hong Kong. So I thought, I'll try this. At the time, I sort of, before I quit, had set up a few freelance jobs. So I ended up starting to freelancing for 7 different companies, some American, some Hong Kongese. So,
wow.
Yeah, because a lot of Hong Kong and Chinese companies want the kind of Western design eye.
Right.
So they saw that as valuable in a way. Oh, she kind of knows. I mean, I don't know if I did, but she somewhat maybe knows what's going on in America. And so, and that was really cool because I got to set my own schedule. I had an assistant who helped me because it was so much work. And I set my own schedule. And that's when Knit Collage sort of came into being, is I could prioritize like working on this Knit Collage and setting my own schedule, but having income coming in.
Right.
So
right.
That was kind of how it all came to be. I guess if I want to rewind, probably about a year before I left, I started spinning and I learned how to spin.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Yes.
And so I learned how to spin yarn by this woman she was kind of like the person who started art yarn and spinning art yarn. So if people don't know what art yarns are, they have all these things spun into them. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but it's like little flowers and
there's metallic threads in there.
Just mine. Hers were like true art. She would never think of repeating the same one over again. It was like, this is a skein of yarn for $50. It's beautiful. You might not even knit anything with it. It might just sit on your wall as like, and each one really was art.
Yeah.
Was Lexi Bogar, and she wrote the book, The Handspun Revolution. So I learned from her, and I just couldn't shake it because it was just one of those things that maybe it was like this with you with weaving. It just like clicked.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like now I can't do anything else. And I'm obsessed. And I bought a spinning wheel and a carder, which is how you mix all your fiber colors together it's kind of like watercolor painting, like, or mixing paints, but with fiber.
Okay.
So, and they're really expensive, like the most expensive things I've ever bought. And then fiber. So it's not the type of craft you travel with easily.
Right. Wait, so was this all in Hong Kong? You learned in Hong Kong and she was based there?
It was before I moved. It was before I moved.
Okay.
I learned to spin. So a year or two, I don't know when exactly I learned to spin, but it was going on in the background. And when I moved to Hong Kong, I definitely took my wheel and everything. And it was all percolating. Like, the idea to start something was percolating. And what I ended up doing is creating a line of yarn. I created like, I don't know, 8 or 10 colorways of one yarn. I just called it the Knit Collage yarn at that time. And I emailed pictures of the yarn to yarn store owners. I think this was before Etsy. I mean, Etsy would have been great for this, but
wow.
I think
pre-Etsy. What are we talking about? Like 2004?
No, 2005.
I don't know.
2010. Was Etsy then? And I just wasn't
Etsy
aware.
was there, but I don't think it was so much in terms of supplies. It was like finished made product. You know what I mean? It was like just handmade products that were not in the supplier realm.
I wasn't aware of that was a channel for me. Probably would have helped me.
Well, no, so that's what I mean. I think they only started doing supplies later. So I think at
So
the
it might not
time,
have even been
exactly.
like an option
Yeah.
for me. Yeah, so I emailed stores, and one store wrote back, and it happened to be Loop London. Susan Cropper is the owner, and she was like, "I'll take 10 of each." And I was like,
That's amazing.
And I was like, "Oh my God, I can, maybe I can do this." I had no idea how to make them on scale,
Well, yeah.
because
So
I had
how long did
thought
how long does it take to spin like one skein of yarn? I don't know anything about spinning. So,
around 2 hours it takes to spin
okay.
one. At least that's what it took me then. The women I work with in India, it's less. It's less. They are like machines now.
Yeah.
They're way better than I was or am. Um, and so what happened in Hong Kong is I actually had a studio office. I had a studio space I shared with two other people who had their own small businesses. And I recruited a few Hong Kong women and I taught them how to spin, and we just sort of figured it out. And the other assistant for my design business helped me translate, and it was really fun. And I learned the kinks of the process. I kind of learned how to assembly line things, to make the process go a little bit faster in some ways. And that's sort of how it all came to be. And then around this time, I had met my husband, and my cousin, who's my best friend, got married here in Rhode Island. I came back for a couple of weeks. I was a maid of honor to help her. And I was reaching like my 5-year mark in Hong Kong. And I just was starting to feel like I'm ready to move home and be closer to my parents.
Yeah.
And so I sort of told Trammell, I was like, "I'm ready to move home now." And he was like, "Okay, well," but we weren't quite at that place where it was like, are we going to move places for each other?
Right. It's a big life decisions.
So he did end up moving
Oh,
he got a
wow.
job in Boston, and I moved into my parents' basement in Philadelphia for a while. And that's where I started to get some of the first shipments. And at this same, so I guess everything's happening all at once. Sorry, this is not super chronological.
No,
But
that's okay.
when I decided I wanted to move back, I was thinking, how can I do this on a bigger scale? Producing the yarn in Hong Kong was kind of like producing yarn in New York City or San Francisco. It was really expensive. And I knew I wanted an excuse to get back to India. I knew it was going to be a great fit for my product too, just given all the things they have there and the resources and the materials. So I started to think about how I could make this in India. And I started to take trips there. And I went on Google University and I was like, what, like, trying to find like potential people that would want to partner with me. And I did a lot of traveling around India, and it was wild.
Are there like fair trade agencies that hook you up with, like, how did you even find your group?
More for people who were doing yarn, who were like interested in yarn or interested in setting something up with me. And in the end, I partnered with a woman I worked with at Free People.
Oh.
So, and that I think was key, because one of the people that I went and saw when I was like trying to figure this out, they ended up like trying to copy my yarn a year later. And I think having the trust of having worked with someone for a long time was really key.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've never tried to, it's just been a good, trustworthy relationship from the beginning. And I'm not saying every place in India is like that at all, but I think having the background of, I have experience working with this person, it helped. And she knew yarn, she knew sweaters, she knew where to get fiber. Like she had a background in, and she was really like just open. She was like open to just like, still to this day, I'm like, I can't believe you trusted me to like this really crazy idea, because there's like 100 components in the yarn. It's a lot of components, a lot of things. So, yeah, we basically just started it. I sent all these wheels to India and all these carters, and she helped me recruit the women. We have 13 women in India that have been, all except 1 or 2, working with us since 2010, which is almost.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. So I started the business in late 2009, and we moved it to India like right around November that year.
Okay.
And they started shipping out like in the spring.
So how did that training process go with like onboarding your like, and you had to teach how to spin this very specific aesthetic of yarn.
It was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of sitting with them.
Like how long did you stay there to do that?
I would stay like 2 weeks, go, come back. And that was probably for a year that I did that.
Wow.
But it's also foggy because this is so long ago. I should probably write down, like get the timeline straight. But it was a lot of back and forth and just sitting with them. And then once one lady really got it, her name was Mira. She is now the quality control person for the whole team.
Yeah.
She teaches anyone. We did hire a new person last year. She taught her. It's actually her daughter. So it was like she hired her. So I think once one person got it, like really got it. And at this time, there was still only one yarn. It wasn't like there were different colorways of one yarn. So it wasn't a lot of different techniques. So once she was going, we were like pretty smooth sailing. But that said, when I went back to Philly in my parents' basement, I got some really messed up things at first.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Really, really messed up. And I had to sit and fix all these. They would like, instead of putting knots around the skeins, they were these huge tangles that I had to like trim and make neat. And I would just put on Law and Order SVU. This was before podcasts. Like you're actually like learning something when you're doing your work. I just was watching SVU and like fixing my shipments and getting them all shipped out.
And at this point, were you selling only wholesale to other yarn shops?
I was. I only sold wholesale. And I only sold wholesale till 2015.
Oh, wow.
So it was all going pretty well. That is around the time I decided to move to Boston and be with my boyfriend. And we were like, okay, we think this is going to now husband, like going to work out. And around that time is also when I moved to actually, I think I had a warehouse in Boston where I worked from for a year or two, and then I moved to the warehouse in Maryland that handles all of our logistics, which has been hugely important and just making my life easier because I don't have to do the shipping.
Right.
So that's been really good. And also in Boston, really expensive to I had like a container's worth of yarn in this building. So
I was going to say, even storage is just so expensive.
It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still a lot to do it down there, but it's really nice to not have, to have one thing off my plate and to feel with confidence that it's being taken care of really well.
Yeah. So I'm curious, with each new yarn, that you develop, are you developing them at home and you figure out like a colorway that you love that you want to have produced and produced in India? So you're like, how do you decide when something's ready to be a new line?
It's so much fun. So what I do, I do it at home. Okay. So, and sometimes I'll do it in India too, but I have most of the ingredients they have there. I have at home, and I lay everything out, and then I make little piles of all the things that I think look nice together, like these colors of fibers, these trims. I might have like a Pinterest board, of like inspirations, and the inspiration could be anything. It could be macrame, it could be modern art for a color combo or whatever. Right. And then I usually make these little piles, then I sleep on it. Then the next day I start spinning, and then I just tweak it from there. And I come up with a recipe. So I make like an Excel recipe for the women, and they'll make one sample. They'll send it to me. If the recipe needs tweaking to look more like my original, I'll tweak it, and we'll go like that. So each one is hand spun and the recipe is the same, but because they're handmade, they'll all look a little bit different. Right. And like the daisy yarn has, I don't know, like 50 trims in it. So that's all going to be a different order and a random, and a slightly different texture, right. But you can still completely knit with two skeins in a scarf and it won't look like two totally different yarns, if that makes sense. So, right. Yeah, so I do design at home, but I have been traveling a lot more to India since my kids are older. And now I do design there too, which is a lot easier because what I'll do is I'll make those piles and I'll be like, here, you spin it, Mira. And they'll spin it and, do a tiny sample for me. And I'll be like, no, no, I don't like that. Let's add this. So it's really, it's a lot faster than all the back and forth in the packages and
Wow.
everything.
So how much time are you spending now when you do travel to India? Like
I usually
per
go
year, I
twice
guess.
a year. Yeah,
Okay.
twice a year for about 9 or 10 days. I can't stand
Okay.
to be away from my kids like longer than
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's a long time.
I really want to take them, but I'm not sure when I will do that. They're 3 and 5, so it's still
Yeah.
pretty little.
That's a really long
Um,
flight
yeah,
to have
whereas
to
I feel
deal
like
with them.
and then I feel like when I go, I just really need to work. I
Yeah.
really need to like actually sort out labels, packaging, like last time we spent a long time with like the freight guy about shipping. Like there's just all these details. And I think it would be a big distraction to have that potentially.
Totally.
Someday, I really want to take them Sunday and do more like, vacay,
Right.
and
Right.
that'd be really good.
Yeah. I imagine when you're there, it's like 110% work. Like it's not,
Yes.
there's like
And they
no
work
free time.
so late there.
Oh,
They work
really?
till, well, the spinners work till 7, which I'm like,
Wow.
that's crazy. They get there pretty late. They get there like 10. But still, I will work with Monica, the woman who is like my partner there. We'll work till 10 p.m. and
Wow.
then they want
Yeah.
to eat. That's what gets me.
Oh, no, that's too
I'm like,
late.
I'm out.
And you go to bed feeling like all bloated. You can't eat that late. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how they eat late in Europe too. And I'm just like, oh, how do you do
Yeah.
it?
In the beginning of the trip, it's like they'll like keep pushing food on me, and I'm like, sure, sure. And then I just feel by the end, I'm like, I'm done being polite. I only need one helping.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so
But
funny.
they're so sweet, and it's fun. I stay at their house when I'm there, so I know her grandkids really well, and it's really fun to sort of be part of their family while I'm there.
That's
It's cool.
incredible. And they all speak English?
Yeah, they do. They
Yeah.
do. They do speak English. I wish I spoke Hindi. I wish that was something. I have like a couple words.
Yeah. Maybe something to learn in your free time one day.
Maybe
Like,
when I'm running, that's because I do feel like I could do one of those apps that you just listen to.
yeah.
And I find even when I just say a few words to the spinners, that can go a long way and
Yeah.
just uh, bridging some, cultural divides between us and making
Yeah.
connections.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
awesome.
it's really fun when we go. When I go, I mean it's really fun for me, and I think it's really fun for them to feel like invigorated by it all sort of
For
again.
sure. So I'm sure you come and you like motivate too, because it's like, it really is, it's your baby that
It's so much
as a
fun.
business owner and as the head of your business, you have to sort of inspire people to like want to be creating the best product for you.
And it's fun since I work by myself at home to also just be in touch with that this is actual real work for people. This is affecting people's lives. It's not
Yeah.
just about my own thing and my own, just little world in my office. It's about a lot of
Right.
people here too. And I mean, there's a warehouse, there's a lot of freelancers I work with and different part-time people, but over there, it's truly like these 13 ladies working nonstop.
Yeah. It's really
They don't make
amazing.
yarn for anybody else. So it's also a lot of pressure to keep them busy. That is a constant worry because they need a certain amount of yarn to spin each month to be,
Mm.
um, to keep it
Profitable.
all going.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part of it too.
Yeah. Um, in this business, what do you find to be like the biggest sort of challenge? I mean, I feel like so now you're pretty much in a really nice groove where you've got your fulfillment company, you have your spinners, you trust them, they're making a good product. Now that you're in this sort of stage of your business, what do what are you finding to be your big challenges?
Well, this probably won't come as a huge surprise to people, but I would say inventory and cash flow
Mm-hmm.
are the hardest. And it took me a long time to really get on top of my books and my numbers, which most smart people would be on top of from day one. But I have a husband who's...
I'm laughing because this is like my worst too. I'm horrible
yeah.
with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a husband who's a financial advisor. And so he did it for me in the beginning. And I sort of trusted him. And what ended up happening was he was so busy with his own day job that he didn't really have the time to keep me abreast of what was going on. And I, of course, like I wasn't seeking out that knowledge.
Right.
And so I had one year where I lost a lot of money. And it was like this come to Jesus moment, because I was like, I need to be in charge of this. This is not. So I really went back to, I taught myself, like he taught me. And then I like basically took over QuickBooks, allocating every single pattern download, transaction and managing it all myself. Yeah. And that has been so important to me. And I make a point now never to fall behind it. Knowing the financial health of the business is so important. So we've got that going. I actually now have a bookkeeper, which is really nice.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
That's huge. It took me too long, I think, to delegate that. That was not the best use of my time, probably after a while. But what's really hard in the yarn business is that our busiest season is like fall through, let's say September through February. And right now I'm ordering and paying for all that yarn when sales are pretty low and the money's not coming in for a while, and guessing on inventory. I always guess too little. So that's really a dance, and it's tricky. And I think it's so hard when it's your baby and you don't have investors. It's just you on the line, right, to not feel emotional, not get stressed when, you have all these bills and things. So I think that's really the challenge. And the inventory part is so hard. Like right now, I was looking yesterday, I have these 2 awesome patterns to release that I'm planning to kit and launch, and I have no yarn of one of the yarns left. There's none left. And it's expensive for me to air it in. So I tend to not do that. I have a huge shipment arriving in a couple of weeks. So it's like that. I've like taken out textbooks on inventory management from the library, and I'm like,
girl, I hear you.
I can't do it.
No, it's so hard. I have all my inventory here in my house, and it's still really hard. Really, really hard.
Yeah.
And managing like the flow of I don't know, because like certain colorways are going to go faster than others, and then I always keep doing these air shipments to fill in where I'm missing, and I'm just losing so much money doing it that way. But it's like, people want it, and I don't know. It's so hard.
It's hard. Yeah. At our last knit along, I host these knit alongs twice a year where we all knit the same thing at the same time. And they're really like my biggest kind of events of the year. And it's so much fun. And it's really what I pour like my heart and soul into in the business. And this past spring, we ran out of most colorways on the first day, and the kits are available for a week. So I air shipped, and I love this. The color I air shipped was mustard. Isn't that freaking amazing? That's what people wanted.
Well, no, that's like my most popular color right now still.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I was at a yarn trade show for yarn stores in June, and I had a lot of people being like, oh, yellow. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this is having a moment right now. Still, it's like, it's for a full year. It's been my bestseller. Oh, I love it.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. So I did air some in, and that was pretty painful, but I did. Yeah. I also want as many people that want to join in. And
yeah.
But yeah, the inventory management is so tough. So I don't know. I'm doing this like free business school through Goldman Sachs starting in the fall. And I like, my number one thing is like, help me with these things. Cause I probably should be ordering a lot more, but I'm terrified to order a lot more from a financial standpoint. And,
cause you have to pay for it when you order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a lot. And it's just, I don't know. I think that's something I've gotten somewhat more comfortable with, but it's hard to not get, it's hard to move past it for me.
Right. And so right now you're still wholesaling to yarn shops and doing retail.
Yeah.
right?
So
Okay.
in 2015, I kind of turned my website on. And so
Mm-hmm.
now I do both. And now my business is actually 70% retail. So that's
Wow.
been a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And it's really fun because when I was doing only wholesale, I felt like I was catering to all these different types of shops. Like a shop in Atlanta is different from a shop in Berkeley versus New York
Mm-hmm.
City. And when I turned on my website and I saw, oh, people can, it was like, oh my God, I'll just do what I want to do
Yeah.
and make it beautiful and focus on the pictures. And so it was this huge pivotal moment for me because now I just feel like I'm enjoying it so much more.
Oh, that's so
Not that there's
great.
anything wrong with those stores. I still love all of those owners, but that work wasn't lighting me up in the same way as now I'm like, oh, I'll just make crazy
Sure.
sweaters and
Yeah, no,
yarns.
totally. Your yarns have so much personality, and I feel
Yeah.
like they're really, I guess because of like the bulk and the like variegated sort of nature of like the thickness. Some of them are like thicker than thin, thick and thin. Um, I I don't know. I guess I'm trying to ask a question about inspiration and you and where it comes from you personally.
Yes. Oh man, where would the inspiration come from? Well, I'm probably like a lot like you and a lot of the listeners. I'm always like tearing things from magazines, screenshotting things, like stealing images off the internet and collecting them. I used to do it all on Pinterest. Now I use photo albums on my phone.
Oh yeah,
Like I
yeah.
have the shared photo streams, but I'm not sharing it really with anyone. It's just me. And like, I basically make boards. And with the yarns, it's kind of interesting. Like this year, I went to India in February and I had one yarn of line that used to be called Gypsy Garden. And what I realized there is that I'd had that since 2010. That was the original
Mm,
yarn line. And so the inspiration behind that one, when I was there, I just was like, this yarn is awesome. The colors are just really outdated. And at
mm.
that time, I had new fiber colors. I had all these other new materials that I could work with. And so I combined them in a new way
Oh,
to
nice.
add colors to the line, and we're changing the name. And so that one was really kind of a mix of like going back to our roots and where it all started, but adding the mustard, like adding some really
Right.
cool, fresh colors that weren't what I was into in 2009 and 2010.
Right. Yeah. It's so
So,
funny. I was going to ask you, what is your current favorite color palette? Not just
oh,
in your yarns, but like in your head. Like,
mm,
what's percolating in your head right now with colors?
oh my God, that's such a hard question. Oh my gosh. Well, I tend to go, I would say, if I can I'll send you some pictures, but I tend to go really, like, I think at heart I'm such a hippie that
Hmm.
I love mixing natural like with like this one I think is I'm really into right now. You can see like knit and I'm into mustard and
And the
pink.
corals. Yeah.
Yeah, which but I'm into like mixing it with a kind of a crunchy granola girly type feeling.
Yes.
And then I think on the other side, I've always loved bright, happy colors. I never wear black. I try to like I always put a black combo up in the knit along kits, but it like that I will never knit that. That's just not who I am. I get it that people love it and it's so sophisticated and you're always going to look more cool and fancy than me, but like it's not my thing.
No, I love it. Your personality really comes through your yarns, which is
Yeah.
such a cool thing. Also, how do you they have the best names.
Mm.
Wanderlust, Gypsy Garden.
Most of them in the beginning came out of my head, but now I go on like Mac makeup and I'll like look for
Oh,
their
nice.
eyeshadow names and I'll like
Oh no, hold on. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. I lost you for a second. That was my Wi-Fi connection.
okay.
Okay, wait. So you go to
Oh,
Mac. Sorry, that was my
yes.
yeah.
So I go to Mac and I like come up with I'll just look through all their eyeshadow colors, see if there are any cool names, and then I'll go to I don't know like paint companies. They show them all there.
Also, I
Recently,
was just thinking
I
nail polishes. I was like getting my toes
got
done the other day and I was like, get the nail polished colors. I was like, oh, these are really good.
Yeah. And I think for the yarn I was just telling you about, we were calling it Dreamland. All of the colors are named after Joni Mitchell
Oh,
songs.
that's
So they
awesome.
don't have anything to do with the actual color. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So that's going to probably be confusing for everyone. But when you're naming your like 200th color, it's hard to go for
Yeah, no, seriously.
something
But
new.
yours all have like a very sort of fantasy sort of dreamscape feeling, which I just completely love.
Thank you so
Because I feel
much.
like wool in general kind of does that. Like when you feel a skein of wool, and yours especially, which are so squishy and full and beautiful and full of color, I don't know, it brings you to like
Thank
another
you.
place, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I think, well, really at the heart of the business and the why I do it all is like basically freedom of self-expression. I
Mm.
think that is so important to me. I've had like a couple knitting projects that I feel have just in a way brought me back to myself where throughout childhood growing up even working at Free People I felt like some part of creativity got like stamped out, like just
Yeah.
society. I think that happened to me. And then even in the beginning of running my business, it was um, the financials and the inventory, all these things, trying to like that stressful year I told you about. And what I realized as I did those projects is that it just felt so good to express myself through the yarn and through the knitting.
Yeah.
And I felt like myself again in a way, which is just what I want to kind of inspire others to do with our yarns because they
Hmm.
are so unique and creative and mixing them in crazy ways and
Right.
creating things that feel like themselves. So that's sort of like where, why the yarn and why this crazy yarn and why I like to do what I do. And really, it's like in the knit alongs, I encourage people to get like really creative and add their own twist to the pattern and make it their own and customize it, whatever it is.
That's so awesome. I wonder if I have enough knitting skills to do the knit along this year.
You just need to know how to knit and purl. That's
Okay, I guess I
it.
can do it.
Because there's a online video class
Oh,
that goes along
awesome.
with it. So it's private. You buy the kit and you get the pattern, you
Uh-huh.
get the notions you need for it, and then you get emailed a link to the online class.
Oh, how fun. When's the
Yeah,
next one?
October. So if
October.
you're serious,
Okay.
I'll email you. I'll make a
No,
note
no, I'll just
to
order it. Don't
do
don't worry about it.
yarn.
I will totally order it. Um, what what was I gonna ask you? Okay, so you have your knit along coming up in October. Oh, what are you sort of spending most of your time on these days? Like in terms of what's coming next with your business and where you'd like to see it?
Yeah, it's been a really busy summer. I thought summer you think would be chill
Mhm.
because not many people are knitting. That's not true, by the
No, because
way.
you got to prep for the next 6 months. Yeah.
So I would say my biggest priority is coming up with the next knit along designs, and I'm doing some, but I also work with a lot of pattern designers, not just a small handful.
Mhm.
So we're all working pretty closely together, and it's intense. So when you release a sweater out into the world, someone writes the pattern, then you get it tech edited by a tech
Mhm.
editor who checks it for mistakes. Then they grade it for all the sizes. And then you have to test knit all of those sizes with the yarn to make sure the yarn usage is correct. So we're doing that for all of these, and it's a lot.
And when you test knit, you have to find if you're not going to do all the do you do all the test knitting yourself? No, no. You find people who are of a particular measurement size and they do their size, or how does that work?
So if you're a pattern designer like Andrea Mowry or someone like that, you can ask people to test for you. They
Mm-hmm.
get the yarn, they do their size, and they'll do it for free.
Mm.
And that's, I think, how it works traditionally. For me, because I want people to use my yarn, it's expensive. And so what I do is I actually say, here's the yarn, here's the size I want you to knit. They don't keep the sample, so we keep them, and then I compensate them
Mm.
in yarn
Mm-hmm.
or some people, if it's like super urgent, I'll pay them too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little different the way that we do it, but I really need it knit in our yarns.
Yeah, of course.
So
Of course. It's, well, because yours are so specific that I can't imagine
if
that
I'm
you can
selling
sub
a
anything
kit,
else.
yeah, if I'm selling a kit, I need to be 100% sure
Yeah,
that the yarn usage works out. And I've
for
had problems
sure.
with that in the past. So that's one of the things I'm working on. The other really cool thing is that I just hired a new full-time person whose name is Vanessa. So we're getting her up to speed. My sister worked with me, but she's due with a baby in a couple weeks. So Vanessa's going to be taking over. So we've been working with her, training her. And then the other big thing I'm working on is accessories for Anthropologie and Free People. So I still have some
So you're
time.
still working with them. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's good, but it is a lot of work. A lot of work.
Right. Wait, no, obviously you're not creating all the pieces. So you're designing all the pieces and then you'll send for them to then produce.
No, actually, I am designing them all, or the other designers that I mentioned before have designed hats, whatever, whatever it might be. And then we are actually knitting them in India. So the women that are spinning are also knitting. They're amazing. And they like crochet all the flowers you see in the yarn. Like even like this trim over here, I don't know if you can see that. Like
It's
that's
so beautiful.
one
Yeah.
that's like crocheted and then they spin it. So they will do all of that. And it's not big quantities. It's small because they're all really expensive. So
right.
it takes a lot, no matter what size the quantity is, it takes a lot to approve the fit. There's a lot with how it's labeled, where the labels go, how it's packaged, how to ship to their DC. It's a lot of details. So Vanessa's helping sort that all out. But
well, and even not a lot of quantity on this big corporate level is probably a lot of quantity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where I don't know. I know it's good for my brand. It's not something I'm ever going to say no to, but it's a ton of work and it's not making a ton. So it's like, I don't know if at some point, I think it's always going to be worth it. I think it's good visibility, but it's a ton of work and it's truly a second business. Like it's totally different than the yarn business.
Right.
And I haven't done the accessories for them in a while, and it's been really nice to just focus on the yarn, and I feel really torn right now.
Yeah.
Whereas the yarn is like the, bread and butter of the whole business.
Right.
So,
plus it takes away time from the ladies in India to be spinning.
Yeah.
Because
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's
a lot to manage. I might plan a trip that their samples are all like going to be knit in September. And so I might just go and be like, are these looking okay?
Yeah. What kind of accessories?
It's a few hats for Anthro. It's some hats that we've already released. So people will be able to knit their own if they want. And then it is for Free People. They just told me they want to do a sweater, which is really exciting. But we haven't actually finalized any of these details. And then I think it's 2 or 3 hats, and a huge shawl, and a fingerless glove. I think that's it. It's like 5 or 6 things.
Wow.
It's a lot. It was so fun. I went to their office, and I hadn't been back in years a couple of weeks ago. And it was really fun. I miss working there in so many ways. It just truly feels like a manpower thing. Like I just need like one more person. And it would actually be so much fun to go and collaborate with them on their designs. And since we're making it all from scratch, like we don't have big minimums. Like we were set up to do cool, tiny artisan special things, which can make Free People, I think, so much better when they have those special, unique things. Of course, anyway.
Definitely. I agree. And I've had a couple pieces of clothing from them that I feel like were in that same vein, like where they were like small, runs. Small runs, exactly. And they feel really special and like, Yeah.
It's a really special place. And I bet it was one of Mary's because she's
probably
her stuff is unbelievable. I always get it. It's a really, really special place. So
that's awesome.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm like, could I just get one more person to help me
I
with
know.
this? 'Cause I think that business would be there if I pushed it, and I just haven't.
Right.
I mean, it is there, but not as I just have been really not on top of it. Like,
No, I know. And I know, like, it's like, in your mind what you need to grow is to be able to train and trust another person in this specific area. But it's like making the leap it's a really hard thing to get over.
yeah,
Girl, I
it's kind of
know.
like one thing at a time. It feels
Yeah.
like.
Oh my God. We've been talking for an hour, but I do not want to get off of the podcast. I hope you have some time to talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
your podcast,
Oh, you're so
Collage
kind.
Creative.
Kind. Thank you. And I just had you on as a
Yes,
guest, so
which was so
everyone should
much fun for me, you guys. Oh,
listen.
so I have had some people ask me, like, when are you going to be interviewed, right? So I'm pretty much probably this is the one time I'll give
Yay.
like the full origin story. So go on to Collage Creative. It's episode 103.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, so yes,
Yeah.
Amy has her own podcast called Collage Creative, and tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I guess it's a little different than yours in that I am really interested in like kind of how creative small business owners and fiber artists like actually live. Like in a dorky way, I'm interested in their story for sure, but like where the confidence, like where they got kind of the confidence or like the balls to be like, yes, I'm doing this, like where that came from. We talk about failure and how you move past failure. I think that's really important in
Mm-hmm.
small business. And then I ask them about their morning routines. I'm a real, like, I really love morning routines and geeking out about stuff like that. I'm a very early riser. So, like, I'm interested to hear about how other people do. And a lot of people actually have come back and said, oh, I'm a nighttime person. So that's also really interesting too.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we get into what they're most excited about in their business and what they listen to when they're creating. And it's been fun. It's not just fiber artists. So I do tend to have mostly pattern designers, yarn people, weavers, macrame. But I have had some florists on, which has been really fun, like
Oh,
farmers
cool.
that have their own flower farms. I've had some fine painting like artists on the show. So there have been just like just a lot of creative random people that have crossed my path in life.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. When did you start your podcast?
So it wasn't, oh my gosh. So I'm on episode 103. That means it was like 2 years ago. Cause
Oh,
yeah, about 2 years
yeah.
ago,
And you
which was
do you have a very regular launching schedule?
yes, it's once a week on Thursdays.
Okay.
But I will say around the times of the knit along, it's every 2 weeks because
Yeah.
I put everything into that community and making sure everyone's knitting is going well. But that
Congratulations, by the way. You just had 100
thank
episodes. I
you.
mean, like, that's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. It's one of the things though that I probably spend the least amount of time on. I wonder if you
Mm,
would say this. I love doing it. It's so much fun. I think, one of the things I love doing the most about it is that on social media, I mean, I get to meet and learn from these people, but then also I have something to share
yeah.
that's not about me. I get
Yeah.
to share other cool people because after a while you're like, oh, my yarn, my patterns, like it's just so refreshing to be, but look at this other awesome people, which you
Totally.
do so well on your Instagram is shining a light on so many
Oh,
people's
thank
amazing
you. I
artwork.
mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was getting so sick of like me. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, how am I like, I don't know. It starts to feel so like self I always forget this word. Like self-congratulatory in this weird way. And of course, social media should be it's your account. It's your
You have to do a
portfolio.
little.
You have to do it. But yes, I found that the way that I formatted my Instagram now, strategically or whatever, is just it's been so nice to be able to highlight other people.
Love it.
Like take me
I
out of the
love it.
equation.
Yeah. And I think kind of at the heart of all these people that I'm interviewing is that they're living these really unconventional, off the beaten path lives. And that fascinates me too, is how they're forming their days, how they're living, like how they're creating income and supporting themselves and their families in some way that's not a 9 to 5.
Totally.
I just find so inspiring. So that's sort of just shining a light on whatever they're doing day to day and how they've created. I think it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah.
And it is freaking hard.
Totally.
But then once you start doing it, you can't go back, right? So
No, I don't know, guys. If I ever have to go back to like working for someone else and commuting and doing all that again, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know if I can do it.
I feel you. I so feel you.
I'm going to be one of those people that just keeps playing the lottery or something in the hopes that
I'm like, I just have to evolve it somehow. I would just be thinking of the next thing potentially.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay. I don't know. I feel like I have so much to ask you, but we've been on for a while. Okay, a couple more.
I'm fine.
You're good? Okay, cool. Because I tend to go over. I hope people don't mind. I don't know.
Good.
What's the best business advice you've ever received?
Oh, well, this is one I mentioned to someone else on the podcast recently, but I don't think it might have been you, but I'm not sure. It might have been you in the other episode. But I think one of the biggest things that's had an impact on me is the idea of working on your business, not in it. Yes. I think I mentioned that. Yeah. So the book is the E-Myth, and it's very intuitive, but I think a lot of small business owners that don't have big investors tend to get down in the minutia. All the things I just told you, by the way, I'm still dealing with this. I have not figured this out, but it's just the idea of carving time to work on your business. Where are you going? What are the biggest priorities? And delegate as much as you can of the technical work of the business. Right. So whatever that might be. But that's been really powerful. And I have a business coach that has helped me with that a lot too, but it feels very ongoing, because then there's just always more work that could be. Right.
I mean, which is good in a way, because then you can see so much potential for growth. If there's more work, there's more weeds to grow, right? And you haven't just stopped and come to some standstill where everything is stagnant.
Yeah, totally. And I think if there's one other thing, it's sort of what got me here won't get me there. It feels like I always need to be making time to learn new things and research, how to improve, how to get better. And I think that's one of the things in the past couple of years, it's been really important to me, not even what's the best inventory system and all that kind of stuff, even just from a personal level, how to become a better version of myself, because I think that impacts the business too. So all of that I think goes into it.
Yeah. A business coach. That's very interesting. Yeah. How did you decide that it was time or that you needed one?
Well, it was around the time of that year that I lost the money and I felt really overwhelmed. I just didn't know what to do. I had read the E-Myth. I went on their website and I was like, oh my God, they have coaches and there's a free call. So I was like, okay. And that is how I got my coach. And I love her. I've had her for, I think, 5 years.
I love that you actually called, because I think that's no, I feel like that's one of the hardest things to do. It's you know what you need in a way. Maybe you were just desperate, but you did it. You made the call.
She's the one who told me to turn my website on. And at that time in 2015, I think I was terrified because yarn companies don't sell their own yarn online. Yarn stores are really against that. So you see that in fashion, that happens all the time. Free People sells on their own site and they sell to Bloomingdale's or whoever. But that doesn't happen a ton in the yarn world, more now. But back then, not at all. And so I was terrified that I'd kill my business.
Oh, I see.
And if I hadn't done it, what she had said, she pushed me to do that. And I don't think I'd be in business if she hadn't pushed me to do that.
Right.
But the other thing that's really nice is that the only other person I really had to talk to about my business was my husband. And some days after a long day, getting the kids down, work, I don't even want to talk about work anymore.
Yeah.
So to have a call every 2 weeks where I just get to be like, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? And I don't do everything, but to really just have one other person who knows the ins and outs that I can confide in and get their advice has been really important.
That's
So I'm
amazing.
a big
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah. And even in a way, like they function as sort of a mentor, which is amazing to have someone who can just bounce things off of and kind of lead you and show you the right direction. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been really helpful.
Yeah.
I'd recommend highly for anyone thinking about it.
I'm pretty sure I'm getting off of this call and going onto the eMyth website.
I would recommend Amanda.
Okay, good. Writing it down.
I could send you. I should know her last name by heart, but
I know sometimes we blank on those things when we're being recorded.
Amanda Stott is her name. I just remembered. I looked at my phone.
Okay. Awesome.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Wow, that's so great. God, this is such an extremely helpful interview. I think people are really gonna love hearing it, and also just realizing that you don't just that like it doesn't all necessarily come naturally and easily. That there is some serious freaking work behind creating something this big and successful, and where you have so many areas of growth opportunity. And it's like, it's weird because like, you know, all we see are like your Instagram and your beautiful website, and kind of that a lot of us, that's all we think there is, and that we don't know what goes behind all of this work, and it's not easy.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And it feels like, do you feel this way in small business where you maybe get to one level and then you're like, oh, like I was just telling you with all this free people stuff, like I'm like, I have this amazing person, Vanessa, start, and suddenly I feel like I need another person. Like it just feels like it's never like you've arrived. And even in the business, I feel like you figure out one thing that's working for sales, and that's not necessarily something you can rest on forever. You have to keep evolving and trying new things. What's the next thing going to be? So it's just a constant evolution, constant work.
A constant evolution. And then you have to be constantly hungry. And I think that's where I'm sort of struggling, because I'm in a very like sort of comfortable, like I'm not really growing that much. I'm sort of just staying the same and kind of enjoying the chillness of that. But that's what I mean. So like, but then I'm like, oh, but there could be so much more, and they could be so much bigger. And like, there's this ambition, like the ambition is sort of there, but I almost feel like, I don't know if I'm hungry enough. You know, have you heard that there's this parable about a guy who, like a fisherman, and, you know, all he wants to do is just like have a boat and be able to fish for his family. And then someone comes along and says, oh my gosh, you know what? We could have it so you're catching 10 times more the amount of fish, and we just have to get this many more boats and this many more fishermen to work for you. And then like, he basically gets burned out and is like, goes back down, downsizes back down to his one boat, and that's the way he's happy, you know? So I'm like trying to figure out this, like, I think where's the balance?
So much to be said for that. Yeah. And especially when you have kids, like,
yes.
Like, and also just maybe it's just a season right now where, cause like, I know it sounds like I'm doing a gazillion things, but I am working like 2 half days during the summer, and the rest I have 7 hours of help a day, which is like a lot less than probably a normal working person, right? People that have to go into an office. But I try just not to like beat myself too much up about it, because it's summer and there's still so little, and it's just kind of like, it is what it is right now. So try and just enjoy that not everything's going to get done, and it might not be growing as fast as I wish it was growing, but the fact that it allows me this flexibility, and that's worth it too, in a way.
Absolutely. So, yeah, totally.
It does feel like, I don't know, my sister, I wonder if like the generation behind us, she's 7 years younger. She's like so much more chill. She takes everything slowly. I don't know, maybe that's just her personality. Whereas I tend to be like, like keep going, pushing all these things. And she's just like so happy with like where and I just wish I could be a little bit more like that some days.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
It's good.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of pressure though now too, because, you know, like it's a function of the times that you were able to turn your website on in 2015, have a very like a thriving retail business, because this wouldn't have happened. It probably wouldn't have happened in like 2005, right? Like it had to be in this specific set of time where things are easy. Like it's easy to build a website now. It's
yeah.
easier to do e-commerce. You know what I mean? Like, like we didn't have these options. So now there's so many more options that there's pressure. I feel like there's more pressure to find a way to really make things grow and succeed because we have these tools and I feel like I don't want to squander them and I want to utilize everything that's out there. But then there's like so many different ways to utilize what's out there. Every platform, like, do you decide, put everything on YouTube, put everything on Instagram? Like you sort of have to, in a lot of ways, you sort of have to choose your channel. Like, I don't know. It's a lot. So we all have to kind of figure, we all kind of have to figure that out. And
prioritizing is so hard in small business. I remember when I worked at Free People, I'd have my to-do list and I'd finish it. And that's never happened for me. Like one day. And
Now, never. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. So is there, now that you've been in business about 10 years then, is there anything that you've sort of, this doesn't even have to be about business. This can be personal too. Is there anything you've changed your mind about in this phase in life that you used to think very differently about? Either about yourself or
I think probably the biggest thing is I let shit go. I really let shit go, and I did not used to do that. And this is more in relation to like my own failures and my own mistakes in my own business. I would really beat myself up and I would get so down. And I have shifted that, like really on purpose, shifted that to be, how is this obstacle or problem or big F up I did, like, how can I learn from that? And how can I somehow see a silver lining in here to make my business better? I did not do that. I would just freak out. I would become paralyzed.
About about mistakes you've made for your own business?
Yeah, I think I would just become paralyzed. I would just beat myself up and replay them in my head 1,000 times. And I'm not saying I don't have my moments where I scream and I cry and, I'll do that. But I'm much better about, and even things like, oh, I didn't get invited to that party. Oh, that person's Instagram is prettier than mine. They have more fun. Like, I just feel like I'm much better. Maybe it's just age,
girl. I don't know. Are you
38?
Oh, yeah. See, this is what happens when you become on the cusp of 40. Things just matter less. Or like you have more perspective, really, I guess. It's amazing. Right? Yes. Really? I just turned 40 and I'm so much fucking happier than I used to be. Like 10 years ago, I was a wreck.
Oh my gosh, you don't look 40 at all. So
I
want your face cream. Yeah, but I think that's probably been a big thing I've changed my mind about, or just like, I don't know if it's something I've changed my mind about or that's evolved because of age or whatever, but I just feel like I can let things go and I can roll with the punches, and I don't know, if things don't go my way, it's fine. And I think actually, because I've changed to this way, things end up going my way more. If that makes any weird reverse psychology, because I care less about the outcome, I think.
Maybe,
I'm more just like, all right.
I think there's absolutely something to that. Because like it's an energy that if you're relaxed along the way and then things just start, it's like you manifest success in a weird way when you're more relaxed about it.
Yeah. I definitely have work to do.
I could be totally bullshit.
So maybe casual and inventory stuff, I could get a lot more relaxed around that. Yeah. I'm definitely not as relaxed. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, we don't have that yarn. We're not going to post that pattern yet. And we will figure out what to do.
Exactly. You can always figure it out. That's the thing. Like, it's funny that you say that you beat yourself up more with your own business. I was the opposite. Like when I worked for someone else, I was constantly stressed and felt like I was failing at all of it. And then when it came to my own, I was like, oh, screwed that up. Oh, well, like it's fine. I'll fix it. Like it's fine,
I love that though. Yeah. I think I probably did it in both situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. That's a good sign that you're where you're supposed to be, right?
I think so. And just, I think it's just, with all the experience, you see now that like even the worst case scenario isn't that bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's still something that you can fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still like, I still think I'm still the luckiest human being. I can go run. I can do yoga. I have 2 kids. I have a house. Like, it's like I have water.
Yeah.
I have peanut butter. Like, I'm okay. And I think just keeping that kind of in perspective. I have this one yoga teacher I love that she drills that into you. Like every single class, she's like, you won the human lottery, And I'm like,
I love it.
Right. I'm here doing yoga.
Oh, I love it.
It in perspective because you think, okay, if I lose this business, that's okay. I still have my friends. Even this community on Instagram, like that I've met so many cool people I've never actually met in real life. I feel like because we're actually speaking and I see you, it's real life.
Yeah.
Like it's, those things don't go away.
Yeah.
If the physical stuff all does.
Totally. So actually, I was going to ask you, what do you like to do? What is your favorite way to spend your time that has nothing to do with Fiverr? I'm guessing running and yoga.
I really love that. I usually do a long run on the Saturday, like 8 or so miles. And then on Sunday, yoga's like taking over my life.
I love really yoga. Really I was gonna answer that as my thing that I have to do, but like on your podcast, but I realized I don't get to do it every day, so then I didn't answer that. But what kind of yoga are you doing?
I do hot flow, and it's Baptiste.
Similar. Well, I do hot vinyasa, so yeah.
Yeah, same. I really like it, and so it's detoxifying. So I've been doing that. It took me a while to find a studio in my new town we live in, but now I found an awesome one, and I go like 2 or 3 times a week.
That's the best.
Yeah. So I do that. I think, I'm always knitting, and knitting. It's funny because when I started the business, I wasn't an avid knitter. I was really a spinner, and it's turned into, I'm lucky that like I love knitting so much too. So I usually will like knit a lot. And then, I don't know, like I feel like I have a great group of friends, and we have play dates, and we make margaritas, and we have like guacamole, and I'm like, I don't even need anything else in life. Like that is to me like the ultimate Friday night. Kids are playing. You didn't have to get a sitter.
It literally, that's the best. It's the best. It's so awesome.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so enlightening. I was going to ask all these questions later, but I think I've worked them all in, like all the random like fun questions. Here's one, and this will be the final question. Do you have any weird quirks or talents?
Weird quirks or talents? Well, I'll tell you this silly thing that I do on the dance floor. I do push-ups.
What? Like at weddings?
Yeah.
Are you going to the club? You're going to the club doing push-ups?
And then like go eat a piece of pizza and don't wash my hands. I only did that once for my bachelorette. But push-ups are like my dance floor move.
That's hilarious.
Last time my best friend got married in like upstate New York, and she is married to a dock builder, and all of her husband's friends are in construction, and they're strong. So I drop and start doing my push-ups, and the whole room dropped. and they're doing one-handed like PIG.
Oh my God.
I'm like, I'm out. You guys.
You started a whole thing though. That's amazing.
They exceeded. I mean, I do like 4. I'm not that strong.
No, but that's like in the middle of a dance floor. That's pretty freaking amazing. I love it.
That's something I do. I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of other quirky, weird things, but that's the thing that pops to mind.
That's your drunken tick. It's so funny. Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, Amy. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge and sharing yourself on this podcast. I had such a good time getting to know you, and I feel like I'm going to actually listen to this one like over and over again because so much inspiration on here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, Cindy. It was an honor to come on.
Thank you. So great. All right. Talk to you soon.
Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on niromastudio.com/thefiberartistpodcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.